Hi, everyone. Today is Saturday, November 9th, 2024. Welcome. I'm Jeffrey Morgan, and this is a talk I host twice a week to discuss my experiences on the path of soul transcendence. This offering is brought to you by the Movement of Spiritual Inner Awareness with the encouragement and support of my friend John Morton, who holds the mystical traveler consciousness, which is the spiritual consciousness that allows us to do the work that we're doing here today. If you're new to the call, the format is simple. We're going to start by calling ourselves forward into the light, which is calling our awareness forward into the light of God that's already present. And then we're going to chant three Anai hues. Hu is an ancient name for God, and Anai invokes a quality of empathy and compassion. Then we're going to watch a video clip from my teacher, John Roger. And then I'm going to do a reading from Tuka Ram, who is, interestingly enough, a Hindu mystic from the 17th century in India that I hadn't heard of before I found the poem. So, with that, Ron Holnick, are you ready to call us forward into the light? You might be muted, my friend.
There
There
I
you go.
am. All right. Well, for some reason, today reminds me of what I heard was an ancient Chinese. They couldn't tell if it was a blessing or a curse, but the way it went was, "May you live in interesting times." So I guess we each get to decide which way we want it. So, Lord God of all creation, we could come before you this morning with great joy in our hearts. We rest in the joy if for no other reason than we have that choice, regardless of what is happening in our world. And so, Lord, we stand forward in that joy and that blessing, and we say, Thy will be done, and we support it. So be it.
This is two words, and it's not spelled right, but it's great and full. I said this one here should say great attitude instead of gratitude. So you have an idea of how do you have gratitude. And I took these and I said, what are the differences in these? If somebody said to me, what are the difference in these? I said, I'd have to go back to my childhood and tell you. Gratitude is for what I already have. And so grateful was always that sense of beingness for what I'm about to receive. Now listen, the cosmic supplies us according to the messages we put out. And I look back over my life, I have a lot of gratitude for the people that loved me. But those people never strengthened me. I'm not putting them down. And the ones who came against me strengthened me and prepared me for the next thing that was coming my way. And I have a lot of gratitude that they were there doing that. It is a thing that it is perfect on this planet, the way it is, and the problem is we don't like it that way. And so it's changing the attitude to see why is it perfect and how can I fit in that starts to make the big difference internally. Okay, we live with each other, but we really live inside. when we shift that attitude inside, we send out a message to this universe that we're all in. And God, when He created us, didn't use junk, and He didn't make the rest of people junky either. He used very good material. And He said, there's a lot more if you can get it. But it's invisible. So how are you going to get it? Well, one of the keys is the gratitude attitude. Thankful for what I have already gotten.
All right. This is a uh, this is a poem called "In Me You Live" by Tukaram. Take, Lord, into yourself my sense of self and let it vanish utterly. Take, Lord, my life. Live you my life through me. I live no longer, Lord, but in me now you live. I, between you and me, my God, there is no longer room for I and mine. Okay. What would y'all like to talk about today? Eric Nelson.
Morning, Jeffrey. Thank you
Good
so
morning.
much. I've gotten so much out of your session, Michael's weekly sessions, John and Lee's sessions. I've just benefited greatly. I am so grateful. I have so much gratitude and grateful for what's coming. I need a little assistance with all of that having been said. I almost feel with there's so much going on that I'm impacted by that I just need to sit and do SCs all day long. And I have no time for anything else, just to deal with how I feel I'm being impacted. And I just wondered if you could share on a physical level how you work with a situation that we're in with everything that's come after this election just impacting you on a moment by moment basis. That would be helpful to me. If my question is clear enough, or if you need me to say more.
No, yeah, I hear you. I don't know that I relate to all that in the sense that I don't find that I'm impacted by any of it on a moment by moment basis. I find that my breathing impacts me heavily on a moment by moment basis. I find my relationship with JR impacts me on a moment by moment basis. But the election sounds very theoretical at this point. It's kind of like having an argument over, you know, a fictional reality or something. The truth is, we won't know what any of this means until it happens. And we can mock up a horrible dystopian reality in our mind, but then all we have is a horrible dystopian reality. You know, that and $5 might get you a cup of coffee somewhere. I think that it's interesting because SEs, you know, the ego is capable of using anything we have to avoid engaging. SEs is absolutely essential to the process of anchoring into that remembrance, anchoring into that awareness, so that when the ebbs and flows of our karmas hit, we're less prone to over identify with that. And so we have a different perspective. We can come from a perspective that says, yeah, okay, all this is going on, but this isn't reality. True reality is something that's transcendent of this. So I think SCs is very valuable, but SCs can also be an avoidance mechanism. I can't tell you how many times I've wanted to go, you know, go hide in a cave somewhere in the Himalayas and just do SCs all day long. That just sounds lovely to me. I don't particularly like being up in front of people. I don't know that I even like being in business. I mean, if you just like, if we had our druthers, I think I'd probably do something more like Milarepa and like get just enough food to last you 4 months if if you're in SCs all the time and go into a cave somewhere and then come out with super abilities or something. But that's not really what's going on. It's funny, a lot of the great yogis taught that, being a sannyasi is one form of discipline. And the measure of a sannyasi is if a pot of gold was dumped in front of you, you would say, I want no part in that. But the irony is the harder road is probably the life of a householder, what they describe as a householder, because
Yeah.
you're engaging so completely with all the karmas and all the interactions, all the
Yeah.
people, and yet you still are maintaining that devotion to God. Keep your eyes on the Lord. Now, there's a slight flaw in all of that because karma yoga dictates that your behavior is the demonstration of your devotion. And therefore, if you don't behave well, somehow you're defective and you have to pay that debt through a karmic process. So you're, in some sense, succumbing to the path of evolution. But I think for me, the way that works is just assuming that I'm the Christ walking into the situation and that I'm the healing that I seek, but still engaging. If you were to just forget all the things you've heard on the news and all the things you've talked about with all these people and all the negative fantasies and all the ideas of what you think the government should and shouldn't be, if you forgot about your idea of the good guys and the bad guys and what political party you think is right and what party you think is wrong and how educated you think one party is and how ignorant people are who vote on the other, if you just let go of all of that and you were to walk through your day, all you would see is beauty because that's what God has for us. If we could just take a moment and look for all the little ways in our day that God says, I love you, I bet you would find it. I bet if you just put your focus on, I'm just going to look everywhere all day long today for all the little ways that God's saying, I love you to me, you would find thousands. And it's funny, we somehow lose sight of that in the fantasy because we think there's an I that exists and we think that I is bound in a political system. And what if they take my money? And what if they take my rights? And what if they do something in my name in a foreign country that I don't agree with? And what about this? What about that? I've never found any of those things that really exist. I mean, even when I'm talking to a large group, I see a number down there that says 280. But then I look at you and I go, this is just the only person that exists in the whole world. And then the next person and the next person, the next person, or whoever connects into me in this process. A group is just a theory. I don't know how to love everybody in the world, but I know how to love you. I don't know how to solve every problem in the world, but I know how to bring my loving into this situation. That whole construct, these group egos and identities of countries. Do you imagine how interesting it would be for two countries to go to war if you could just get rid of the idea of a country? And you couldn't do it. The first step in war is taking a position. Have you ever noticed that? It's when you say, this is my land, these are my people, this is my language, and you're different. If you don't have a position, you don't have to defend it. I think to a large extent, that is one of the characteristics of the mystical traveler consciousness. It doesn't take a side. It doesn't take a side because it's in all of us all the time, and we're in it all the time. There's no need to take a side. There's no need to be against anything, to be for the loving that we are. And in some small way, it's like if you could just take a minute away from the negative fantasy to do something real loving for just one person. That's one more expression of loving in this world. So we're one expression of loving further than we were a moment ago. The problems that we're trying to solve as humans are never outside of us. I just wish that people could understand that. Frankly, I wish I understood that for a long, long time. I suffered so much thinking that I was to solve something out there. Out there is just the karma that I'm cooperating with and participating in because that's what I agreed to do. Like my high self and my basic self and my soul, we all sat together and we said, okay, this is all the stuff you're going to have to do. And I go, okay, I'm going to go do that. So that's what I'm doing. That's called cooperating and participating in my life. But none of that is a dependency to how I am in relation to myself. And inevitably, we say, oh, we have a real separation problem and polarization problem in this country. That's just me saying, I have a real separation and polarization problem in this country. Do you understand?
Yes.
So, whatever you see that isn't pleasing to you is a part of yourself that isn't pleasing to you. So, you're empowered and invited to work with that part of you until it is pleasing to you, until it's loving, until it's sweet. I've been saying for months, I've been inviting people to love the Donald Trump inside of you, to get free of whatever againstness, of the boogeyman that you created. Oh, yeah, God loves all of its creations except Donald Trump. It's just utter ridiculousness. I've been inviting you to get free of that because there was a very real possibility that he would be in office. And I'm just going to be sending light to that guy every day. It's not an easy job that he's got in front of him. And it's not an easy world right now in various respects. Changes in climate, changes in geopolitics, weapons that are more destructive than we've ever created. He's got my love and he's got my support because that's constructive. If I can love that person inside of me, that's one more light unit, one more love unit that's expressing into this reality. If we are not experiencing the loving that we seek, it means we're not bringing the loving that we seek. It means we're not open to the Spirit to love through us in the way that we seek. So the invitation is just to get out of the way. There's nothing wrong with the world. There's nothing broken about our country. There's nothing, there's nothing out of sync with the karma of things. I mean, that's the funny thing. It's like if you could really see the karmas and the perfection of it, you would see. It'd be like, how could it have gone any other way? We may not like it, but I'm sure that if you look at the karmic layout, World War One, World War Two, all these things that are so horrible, 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 there was a karmic need that was fulfilled through that action. Now there's a choice level that says, okay, well, you can go to war or you can clear it through this action. And then maybe there's an alternative, and that's always a gift when we have it as humans. We don't have to worry about fixing reality. The world is perfect. We just don't always like it that way. All we need to worry about is loving this reality so that we can walk through as this life through the ocean of experience as the living prayer answered, as the light, the truth, and the way. We can walk as the Christ through this life, and everyone we touch can be healed in that expression. Not as like, oh wow, I heal people, that's so great, but as an all healing is healing for everyone. All healing is to be celebrated. It's too easy to objectify others, to make them objects, to say, oh, that's a party, or oh, that's a this, or oh, that's a that. It's very difficult to do that when you're looking someone straight in the face and you see God in there. It's very, very difficult to go into that againstness. To know someone is to love them. And if you don't love them, you probably don't know them well enough yet.
Thank you. That was very, very helpful. I really appreciate it. Really
My
appreciate
pleasure.
you. God bless you.
God bless you, Eric. Thanks for your question. Island.
Good morning, Jeffrey. Thank you for calling on me and everybody. Something weird has been happening to me lately.
Hmm.
It's like a feeling washes over me and I'm in complete peace and loving. And it's just the most wonderful thing. But then it's like a broken window shade. It just, then it's gone again. And then a while later it comes back. And I don't know how it's coming or why it's coming. I would like it to come more and stay longer. I'm not sure what it is. And I wondered if you could maybe elaborate or help me understand that a little better.
Yeah, so there's a part of us that is set up in order to maintain the structure of experience that we have. But then there's a soulic impulse with the mystical traveler toward greater and greater awareness of who you truly are. From the subjectivity of your experience, it will feel a lot like a tug of war. So basically, what'll happen is you'll start to enter, and your reference point will shift from a physical egoic reference point to a soulic or spiritual reference point. And you'll start to experience a flooding of that energy as if the beloved is reaching down around you and holding you.
Mhm.
If you can maintain that, you start to see through the eyes of the Christ, or see as the beloved, or being God seeing, that kind of thing. But what often happens is there are mechanisms that are set up within the egoic structure and the personality and even the body that will whip you back into it, into this illusion, into this ego, into this process. On the physical level, that can even be like a heartbeat, like your heart will start beating real fast, or you'll kind of whip into it, or you'll kind of, it's almost like you shock yourself awake. So that's one experience that people will have. On the emotional level, you'll start to potentially feel like a heaviness because it's almost like a part of you will remember or feel like there's a finality. Like, oh, I'm in this beautiful experience, but will it last forever? And then you get heaviness. Then there's a third possibility where the mind will often wander and seek problems in your life. So the mind will subconsciously, and this is all about how you program it, like reticular activator system kind of thing. So you start to program in, find me problems. And this is patterned in through years of looking for problems.
Mhm.
I'm not trying to call you out here. I'm just saying there might be this kind of pattern that finds problems, and that's part of your story. That will start to scan out because the mind will realize it's losing control of you as you start to enter into this different type, different beingness, different perspective. The mind will come in and say, wait a minute, wait a minute. No, 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 no. That's not how this works. And then it'll start scanning out for problems, and then it'll pull you in and start thinking about something that isn't connected with the unified being that I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So what I found is if we place the intention, so the fact that you even have a reference point to a more unity type experience, a oneness experience that feels like the beloved, where you have the beloved as a reference point, that's very, very valuable. See, a lot of people will walk around in life theoretically relating to oneness or God, because down here, oneness is a concept and multiplicity is a reality. Does that make sense? So you're always going to see many, many different separate things in this reality, and that's very, very real. And oneness becomes a concept. But outside of the context of this subjective reality, the objectivity of oneness says there is only one reality, and that is God, that which is.
Mm-hmm.
So even having that reference point can be very, very valuable. And the way you can start to use it is placing an intention on, and I call it like a radical willingness. You say, I want that experience all the time, and it's the surrendering. I surrender every level, layer, and aspect of my beingness. Whatever is not that, Lord, please assist me in releasing and letting go.
Mm-hmm.
And even having that reference point and saying, no, 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 that experience of just letting go of the suffering, letting go of the negative beliefs, letting go of all this, and just truly being in the oneness of knowing the perfection of God's creation.
Mm-hmm.
You can just put your intention on, I'd like to manifest that, and I submit, I surrender, I empty myself and allow that to express through as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
There's an interesting quote from Meister Eckhart. He said, to be full of things is to be empty of God, and to be empty of things is to be full of God. So, to some extent, the degree to which we empty ourselves of all the things and attachments and the stuff that we have going,
Mm-hmm.
the automatic expression is a fullness and an unfettered expression of the Christ within you. Do you get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And you can feel it. I mean, even in this moment, it's like it's reaching, like it's touching in. It's like almost it's like Michelangelo, that painting where the fingers almost touching. When you start to have that reference point, it's always
That painting.
floating just above. And there's this beautiful quality that comes forward when you start to just, it's almost like yawning, or like you just you let it flood you. You just let it, you kind of surrender, you reach up, it reaches down, and it goes through you.
Mm-hmm.
And the way to cultivate that, because you can't make that thing go, just to be clear, it's the degree to which you try to make the spirit happen is the degree to which it doesn't happen. The degree to which you don't try is the degree to which it happens. So it's like you want to do as little as possible, but if you're going to do something, you clear out the junk in your mind, emotions, and consciousness and create a kind of a beautiful, blissful emptiness and silence. And you allow the Christ to emerge from out of the silence into your expression. So you were asking, how do I be in that more all the time? It's
Mm-hmm.
just about clearing all the debris,
Mm-hmm.
clear out the debris on the runway so that the beloved can touch down through you. If you got old refrigerators and junk all over the runway, makes it a little difficult. You get that?
I have been feeling more loving to people, and it just comes on me. And people I remember that I didn't even like. And
Yeah.
the man in the laundromat yesterday, I was late getting my stuff in the dryer. He figured out it was me that still had stuff in the washers, and he put it all in the dryer for me. And when I came back, I said, "What do I owe you? I'm so sorry I'm late." And he said, "You don't owe me anything. You've done enough for me already." And hugged him on the way home, and the guy next door that's been a thorn in my side. I got my dog's leash tangled up in my walker, and I asked him to help me. He spent a long time undoing it and fixing it for me. And, just these loving, wonderful things. These two people that I fired from being my IHSS helpers texted me yesterday and said, "Could we work for you again?" I said, "Yes, please. Do you want a female or male? Both of you, come." So I'm expecting them. And my sister, who I had so much judgment about and anger towards, Renee Randall, please put her in the light. Her birthday's coming November 14th. She sent me a check for $100. Nothing, no letter, no nothing, just $100 check. And I texted her, I sent her an email thanking her and wishing her a beautiful 80th birthday and all that stuff. But I just realized when those problems, the problems I'm looking for, why don't I like this person? If it comes in, like part of me is saying, so what? Like
Yeah,
J.R. used to say,
and
so
I
what?
just
What
and I just
now?
go,
And then nothing left but loving.
and my approach with all of that is when I find somebody that triggers me or that it's not easy for me to love them, I go the other direction and say, Dear Lord, please assist me in being truly in love with them. Like I want to be in love with them.
Mhm.
I want to be so fully expressing that loving with them, not from a behavioral level, but that all the barriers that I created to that free flow of loving be removed.
Mhm.
Oftentimes we settle for, let's just, hey, dear Lord, can you make this person less annoying to me? Or can you please remove them from my field of experience? I go extreme. And I found that these people that I have had so much judgment with, I become very, very close to. And I've even had dreams with people where I've had like very difficult relationships, and I prayed and prayed and prayed to be in love with them. And in the dream, it was like I was having tea with their soul. And then I just like couldn't, coming out of that dream, I can't not love them. I had just incredible warmth and sweetness inside of me for them. And there's nothing I could do to stop it. So as much as natural as it was to dislike them, it was equally natural now to love them. And I think that's, to me, that's grace.
Mhm.
That's 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 the ultimate gift.
Thank you so much for demonstrating that to all of us and to me. I'm so grateful for you. And just one more thing to the light. I've got a bunch of cats now that come to my back door that I feed. I've named some of them. I bought little houses for them to sleep in at night because it's cold. I get food for them and put it out. And there's so many cats, they come running to me. So I think that the animals, that they can kind of, when you're in that loving space, they
They want
recognize,
to be close to that.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, thank you for your demonstration of loving and your teaching. You're just such a wonderful being. And I feel so blessed to have you in my life this way. Thank you very much. God
God
bless
bless
you.
you, Linda. Have a nice day.
You too. Thank you.
All right. Tracy.
Hello. Well, my question, I'm not exactly sure what my question is, but it's something about what is the difference between a spiritual bypass and there's a part of me that really struggles with this that doesn't understand because I have pretty intense emotions right now. I feel very betrayed and disappointed, and I always feel like the MSI teachings are just to say, don't feel that way, just go up here. And we've talked about this before, but there's still a really piece missing for me with that.
Yeah, no, that's great. So I think for me, the difference between bypass and altitude is, in a sense, authenticity. because if you bypass, you're trying to bring your ego mental reference point to a place of disassociation. So, like you just said, you're going above it in your mental level or something and cutting off from the neck down and trying to avoid the feeling of it.
Right.
Whereas if you gain altitude, you're referencing from a soulic perspective. You see the entire ecosystem of all the negativity, all the messiness, all the whatever, and yet you love it and you go, okay, I see the perfection in this. I see this. So you see through the eyes of the soul, not as a mental construct, but as an authentic beingness. And oftentimes, why I say it's about, in a sense, integrity, if we are not capable of going to that perspective authentically, I don't think we should try to pretend.
I don't either.
I think it's good. I think the DNA, the nucleus of all experience is God's loving. So if we dig deep enough through the shit, we always end up at this divine spark. So I think I'm more of a proponent of roll up your sleeves, but understand. See, now here's the tricky part. Again, this is about integrity because you digging into that stuff is only valuable to the extent that your intention is, Lord, I'm going to get free of this and see this through the eyes of Christ. Out the other end of this is going to be me loving this person unconditionally, regardless of what they did, regardless of my perceived betrayal, or even seeing beyond it and realize I betrayed me, or realizing there was never really a betrayal. There's this wonderful book that I loved by Stephen Mitchell called Joseph and the Way of Forgiveness or something like that. Um, is the story of Joseph from the Bible, and he had this really interesting line in there that said, "Forgiveness is getting to a place when you realize there was nothing to be forgiven in the first place." You see that? So you get beyond it and you go, wow, I see the perfection in this and I see why this needed to, I see the learning that's taking place. I see that everybody's doing the best they can with what they know. And I love everyone so much. And I'm going to make these choices that support me and that are in alignment with my integrity. But there's no againstness in that, you see? So I think the integrity comes in as there's a thing that people can get into called commiseration, and they start to cycle on the negativity and create an ego position. So from my perspective, if in your integrity you're going to engage with the negativity just so you can build a better legal case or build a better whatever, or build a better righteousness, I would avoid that and just do SCs, because the SCs is the quickest track to getting to that solic perspective. And that is actually the most efficient way to clear it. To me, the most efficient way to clear it is you go into SCs, not as a bypass, but as a reminder of who you truly are. And then from that reference point, then from the solic reference point, you go back into the situation, now seeing through the eyes of the soul, and then you see things that you didn't see before, and then you can work it. I look at it as the soul is caring for the ecosystem of the karma. So the soul is the healer, the soul is the listener, the soul is the lover. So understanding that nothing is happening to me, the soul. Something is happening in the ecosystem of the karma, and there's an opportunity for the soul to be the healer and the lover and the presence that is healing to that whole system. And the tricky part is when you're working that process, the ego will flare up and try to get you to be right. And the real trick is more likely than not, in most situations that I've been in like this, where you're really digging into something that seems catastrophic or angry or the whole thing, it's very, very easy to get stuck to the present story. But more likely than not, you're completing a story from your own past.
Mhm.
So the argument you're having with so and so is really the argument you're having with your dad from when you were 16 years old. Or it's really the argument you were having with your brother from when you were, you know, fill in the blank, or it's even a past life. the degree to which we allow our ego to pull us into this particular story is the degree to which we could be deceived by it. So I'm not really giving you a silver bullet here. I'm just offering you a distinction. Spiritual bypass is about disassociation and avoiding. And so you'll know in your integrity, am I doing SCs to spiritually bypass or avoid? Am I doing SCs to really get to the truth? Am I doing this process in terms of the work that I've been taught in various classes and things like that? Am I doing this to avoid or to make myself right? Or am I doing this to get free? And the getting free thing is you have to be, it's not for the faint of heart because there needs to be a willingness to know that everything you think about the situation might be inaccurate. And that's tough. Well, I saw it with my own eyes and the person did the thing, and how could they do it? And they betrayed me in the whole thing. Yeah, but perception is not reality. Perception is a karmic mechanism of completion. So we gotta, and I'm not telling you to gaslight yourself. I'm telling you to have ultimate willingness to let go of whatever you think is true so that you can see a truth that is liberating. And the truth that is liberating might be, got it. This completed a karma. There was actually no other way for this to go. This needed to, this actually needed to happen. And then it's just a choice point. Am I in or am I out with this person? You get what I'm saying? And the am I in or am I out is more a question of does the energy flow? It's like I've often talked to people about a game of Jenga, like you're pressing on the blocks and you go, okay, that one's not moving, that one's not moving, and okay, that one moved. It takes a lot of discipline not to go into the story and the mentalization and say, well, but I can't do that. Even though the energy's on it, I can't do that because they did this thing and I have all these rules. And when somebody violates those rules, I can't do that. You get what I'm saying? At a certain level, to really engage toward freedom, you have to have the willingness to let go of everything that isn't the truth of God's loving, the truth of your own soul. And then it becomes more about action, the movement of the energy, and less about a righteous position and identity. And there are going
Yeah,
to be
so
parts of you that would need to heal. There are going to be parts of you that are going to hurt, like the basic self, but that's ecology. That's your soul tending the garden of your consciousness. That's understanding. And you could be very realistic and say, look, my basic self is saying this can't work. So my even though my consciousness is in forgiveness and letting go, my physical body is out the door already. And unless I find a way to work that process, I'm going to be out the door already. Do you understand?
I think so. What's coming forward for me is I can really feel when I'm talking to people, especially in MSA, I can feel the disassociation. So I not, just and so with me, I'm thinking if I can feel it in others, and I have to be able to feel that in myself and know when I'm doing it so that I can take it to the next level.
Yeah, if you were raised with a programming that pleasantness is good and anger is bad, where did you put all that anger?
Yeah, it's in my body and it needs to come out.
Yeah, exactly, just like that. Into a pillow, whatever you can do. But it's okay. Understand also the ego is designed to take things personally.
Right,
Most of the time, people's actions are about their karma, not about you.
right.
We make them about, wow, but they broke an agreement. It's very much about me because we had an agreement. No. If you could see how their karma works, you would understand that sometimes things are going to happen and it's not easy. It's ridiculously predictable. And you pray for grace that maybe you can complete that karma in a different way, or maybe you can do it. But sometimes the probability is very low. and then you just pray for the person. And again, it's like none of this stuff that I'm talking about is easy. And I've been in these situations where I can get so righteously upset about how could the person cross that line and do that thing, and no, 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 no. But then it's like my freedom in my consciousness is worth more to me than being right. So how many times am I going to forgive? 7 times 70, 70 times 70, the number of completion. Like we're going to keep forgiving until we're at until we've reached the heart of God. Not as a righteous behavior, not as like, oh, well, forgiveness is what we're taught and we should do that. It's like, no, be selfish. You don't want to have fetters and chains on your consciousness. You don't want to feel imprisoned. Be selfish. Forgive everyone and everything so you can be free moving in your consciousness. Because you're imprisoned by your judgments. Have you ever noticed that whenever you judge, like if you judge someone for always being tardy, you're going to be extra anxious about not being late? You never notice that?
Yep.
That which we judge in other people becomes our obsession in ourselves. To forgive is to be forgiven. To judge is to be judged. There's no need for an outer God that does that. We do a very good job of that ourselves. So, in terms of the bypass, it's just going to take a lot of discipline of am I in integrity and alignment right now? Am I expressing honestly about what's going on in here? And it may help you. I mean, there's different folks on here that have taught about Gestalt and things like that. It might help you to shift the perspective and say, okay, well, Tracy inside of me is not expressing the upset, but let me just express from so and so inside of me, or let me just express from little girl Tracy inside of me, or let me just express from. You can bypass a lot of these mechanisms that you created to suppress the parts of you that were quote unquote unmentionable. But you may find that it comes out in behavior too, because behavior is often where we express is what we think is unacceptable to express. We then express subconsciously through behavior. So you kind of look at your energetic wake. You look at the little comment you made here. You see, it comes out somehow. The anger comes out somehow.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, when things happen where we feel betrayed or something earth shattering feels like it just happened in our life, I look at it as like use what does use everything to your upliftment, growth, and learning really look like in the extreme sense? What if this whole situation was God's gift to you? What would be the secret meaning underpinning this whole thing? What would be the awareness? What would be the part of you that's in prison that gets to be free now because of this? So you start to see those opportunities. You're not going to see those opportunities from the righteousness. All you're going to see is striking the other person down for the horrible thing that they did. But that's not going to get you free because even if you strike them down, I mean, we've all heard the stories, we've all seen the movies, we've all heard the expressions like revenge is a dish best served cold. Look, if revenge really worked, I probably wouldn't be back here. Yeah, I probably tried the revenge thing and then had to reincarnate about it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So even if you got everything your emotions tell you you want to make this right or to make this just or to get justice, you still wouldn't be free until you're free. To me, the bypass is always visible energetically when I talk to somebody because their words will not match their insides. They'll
exactly.
say, "Oh, I'm doing great," and you'll hear somebody screaming inside of them. And I was a tough person to be around, to be honest. Like when I was young, I had such a high standard for honesty. And I remember I was really young. I would be attracted to people sometimes that other people didn't want to be around just because they were, at least they were honest. Like maybe they were cranky, but you knew what was going on. There was no discontinuity between the inner and the outer. But then I would like cut off from people because, oh, that person's a liar. Well, why is that person a liar? Did they say a lie? No, but they're saying they're being really pleasant while they're screaming inside at me, and I can't even hear their pleasantness because I'm just listening to them screaming, and it drives me crazy. So I wasn't an easy kid to be around. I'm a
You
lot more
remind
forgiving. I'm a lot more forgiving now.
you remind me of my son. That's why I'm laughing.
Yeah, it's good. Anything else?
Thank you so much.
God bless you.
Bless you.
Hey, Mitchell. It's been a minute. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm so glad to be here, and I've been doing a lot of editing of photos, and part of what I've been doing while I do that is I've been playing the your library of seminars, and like
Oh,
I'm taking, good, very, I'm listening and hearing certain things that just keep ringing in my ears, and I love that. And the one thing that really has stuck out is the notion that I don't know where I got this from. I don't know how to put it in words. The words are kind of hard, but that to go into the God realms, to go into the higher realms, it's almost like you just have to you put yourself in them, like you just like consciously. It's sort
it's
of
more
like
like
turning
my
your
experience is more like you're already in them
yes,
and you're uh, uh, you're allowing a point of reference to shift to that part of the expression that manifests as you rather than this one. Like I describe it as like an ocean where you have concentration of salt in one part of the ocean and then concentration of salt in another. And it's not, is it not the same ocean? Would you say that it's a different place or a different? No, it's the same
yeah.
ocean. It's just a different vantage point in a sense.
Well, this is why you do the seminars and I listen because you said it so nicely, and I got that.
It's just, it's very difficult to describe. I
But
always feel like I'm lying on that level for sure.
yeah, I understand that too. But I felt that's exactly what I was feeling. It's like, and last night I've been working at like being more moving my energy in that direction while also working other levels, but of course, and when I was doing it, I realized like I don't think like I got this idea, like a vision that like there is no like there's not a being called God, although I sometimes say there's a guy named Jaime, but that's just my Jewish joke. But uh it's like when you listen inside, the God presence that's already with us will bring down you attune to that vibration and I get like a beautiful information that just comes forward. Or when I say JR and I'm inside inwardly and I hear him say what, because it's like it's so present, but he's also with me, and I'm now just turning my direction towards that source, not as like in a
Yeah.
physical way, but and it's like really been like transformative to see like this is because I was like, how do you do that? How do you do that? And then like wasn't getting doing I've been doing essays for about 40 something years, like I'm like, where is that? All that blah, blah, blah. But it's like just it comes forward from within very naturally. And it's, I'm very grateful for that. So I stopped doing that questioning thing. But um and and somehow this relates to the fact that a couple of the last time I shared, you mentioned something about my being extremely sensitive, and I was like, well, I always knew that, but I really been thinking about that, and it's really helping me to look at how to turn away from that because it's really not. That's really like my ego's way of also trapping me. It's a truth and also a trap. So I'm grateful for what I've been getting out of that
I
too.
think it's just an apparatus to love and care for.
Well, yes, to that too. Um, yeah, it's good to keep above the that explanation to the underlying what's about that because it is true that I don't I find it easy to say that I'm very loving and and compassionate, and that's sometimes where my frustration also comes because it's the world doesn't always match that, as you know. But I really am grateful for all I've been doing here. The more I share, the more I raise my hand, the less I have to share lately. It's like, and I'm glad for that too.
Yeah,
So that's about it. You had anything else to
beautiful.
think of?
Yeah, no, I definitely resonate with what you shared. I mean, we use words like God as kind of convenient reference points or placeholders for an experiential reality. So in that sense, it just depends how you slice it, right? You could look at different words and terms that we use as indicative of different purposes and intentions within the expression of spirit.
Mhm.
So I can understand where the names start to lose meaning. And the more I experience those levels directly, and I say I in quotes because it becomes more like experiencing.
Mhm.
There's less of a reference point. Um, I find that, it was just like I was started talking about it. I was kind of in that. Um, the names lose a lot of meaning up there. Uh, but then when we try to bring it back in and make it practically useful, which is not a bad idea, we start to categorize information and experiences according to certain qualities that we perceive in that process. Inevitably, that's a fraught process because we're bringing it through a lower construct. So by the time it makes it down to my mouth and it's expressing to you, it's been through a few layers. That's why I say I'm not encouraging anyone to believe what I'm saying. I'm encouraging people to experience their own process and see if there's any kind of reference point that assists them.
Yeah, it's almost like a lot of just pivoting in your own consciousness and like letting go of like that the pivot is to any particular place. I don't even know what's the whole words for that thinking it. It is kind of amusing sometimes when you try and think. But I was also thinking about this thing about God, like this talking about that God is created us so we could experience us. And I started to think, is God like God, I think of God as just beingness, like in in and of the it of itself. And that
Yeah.
maybe and I thought, is it possible that like God's being conscious is almost a separate part of God that is conscious of his beingness, and that's why there's this kind of karmic plague going because it's kind of like, well,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I can't even.
Yeah. It'd be more like spirit individuates into God, which individuates into the Lord of the soul realm, which individuates into the soul. But also, there's also the God form that individuates into different lords at different levels, but it's like echoes.
Yeah,
And the construct of a creation or the pattern of creation is the structuring of an illusion of separation, an illusion of time and space in order for God, God's spirit to experience through that aspect. Because within the unity of being, that wouldn't be possible. So a construct called time and space is put in place so that experience can be obtained in that expression. In the larger sense, we say so that God can know itself. really, the first time I've heard that I heard that articulated, or the earliest articulation of that I read was a hadith attributed to Muhammad. I was a hidden treasure. Supposedly Allah said, I was a hidden treasure and I longed to be known, so I created creation that I might be known, or
Yeah.
something to that effect.
Well, you know, while you're editing photos and listening to you, I have a lot of time to think of these things.
Don't think too much.
Yeah, I try. Well, that's kind of hard, but I'm practicing that. So, thank you very much, and God bless you and everyone here. I'm grateful to be here.
God bless you.
Love you.
Love you. All right, everyone. Thank you. The blessings already are. Have a wonderful day.